We've shot super high tide together. You check the video out on that one. But now let's go shoot super low tide together. We've got a negative tide out there tonight. So we're gonna go look for some reflections. Some of those big puffy clouds are in the sky, so we should be able to get some really cool shots tonight.
Okay, we are going to walk around and find our spot. I don't know what we're going to shoot just yet, but look how much beach there is. Water's way out there. Maybe we'll walk down toward the pier and look for a reflection shot with the clouds. See how this goes. Sure is pretty. It'll be interesting because we have that thick cloud bank that the sun is about to set into. So I am not sure if we're going to get a great sunset or if that's just going to snuff out everything. You just never really know. But it looks like, I don't know. I don't know if I had to put money on it. I'd bet that it's just going to kind of fade out slowly and not be magnificent. But we're going to be here and we're going to be prepared and get some shots no matter what. I think we're going to get some cool sun rays coming out of that cloud bank. So we'll see if we can frame that up and see what kind of image we can get out of it. We're definitely getting those sun rays tonight. Really pretty. The way the pier is reflecting in the low tide is really pretty. Nice little shot right there. Also, I brought out the filter on the lens, which looks like this. We've talked about it before, but it allows us to kind of put sunglasses on the lens. So that's max, and then we can just kind of stop it down to minimum. And here's what that does as we go darker. There we go. It'll give us a look like that. And now, I can't even tell you how cold it is out here in shorts. Oh my God. Freezing. Freezing. Okay, we're calling this one. It's too cold. But we got some good shots. Got some cool sun rays. Some really nice stuff tonight. Some nice reflections. A couple of surfers walked by this frame, which is always a fun little shot too. So it was good. It was a good time. Very cold. I'm gonna go home, warm up, maybe with a frozen pizza. Yeah. Bonus clip. I was right. The sun's just fading away to gray. Glad we left early. I thought you might like to see how a photo is processed and how we take it from the raw file right out of the camera to a finished product. So I've already done it, but I'm going to just take you through the process quickly here so you can kind of get an idea of how it's working. I'm working in the standard version of Lightroom for this photo. There's also Lightroom Classic, which you can use similar, just some slightly different settings and that sort of thing. But for this one, we're using standard Lightroom. Here is the raw file straight out of the camera. The camera shoots raw in neutral, and so that image that comes out of the camera definitely needs to be processed. I say like sharing this would be like sharing an undeveloped negative in the old film days. Like we need to process it and bring the picture up to speed so we can bring out the color and the textures exactly how we want them to be. So this is the original here, and the finished product is this one. So I'm just going to do some quick processing on this raw file and just take you through the steps on how that's done. The first thing I do is scroll down. This is our develop module here. And so the first thing I do is scroll down and do a correction for lens corrections and remove chromatic aberrations. Those are the little lines of purple and green that you'll see sometimes on the edges of features in a photograph. This one probably shouldn't have that much of a problem with it, but I remove that anyway. The second thing I do is white balance and adjust for the color temperature. As shot, the color temperature is 4350, which is on the cooler side. The higher that number goes, the warmer or more yellowish tones it will get. This one I think is a little bit cool. I might bring it up a little bit. A quick way to do that is to just go to auto or daylight, cloudy. You can kind of see what the differences are. It gets way too warm as we move up there. So daylight's even a little bit warm. That auto section is a pretty nice spot. Another way you can do it is to select this little dropper tool and go select part of the image that represents white. In this particular photo, it really cools off the temperature. I'll show you. So if we select that, then Lightroom believes that this is an accurate representation of how the scene looked. And it's not. So on this case, that's not going to work out very well for us. I'm going to turn that dropper off and I'm going to go back to auto. That is a good place for us to start. Um, so depending on the photograph, you might start adjusting the light settings, your exposure, highlights, etc. I don't want to do that yet. These are called your global settings. Changing these will change the entire photograph. I like to, especially on something like this, go into the masking tools. This is your masking right here. So we'll click on that little mask. And Lightroom is so great these days because you can just select sky. And what Lightroom will do is just select what it thinks is the sky. And it's done a pretty good job here. It missed the part under the pier. We're not going to worry too much about that because it was so cloudy under there. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time fixing the sky under there. You can see that it did select some of this water here. Like it thought part of the ocean was the sky. There's a little trick to get rid of that. I don't know why this works, but if we go to the subtract button, you can subtract certain parts from a mask. We go to subtract, we subtract the sky that we just added, which is super weird, I know. And then we go to the sky we just removed and then invert it, which is long, complicated like description, but for whatever reason, going through that process really helps fine tune the sky selection. And so from that point, we can start making some edits to just the sky here. So what I like to do is grab the highlights here and just pull those highlights down. And you can see what that does. It just kind of removes some of that ultra brightness from the sky so that we can see a little bit better. We might bring up the contrast a little bit and then maybe bring down the exposure a little bit so we can see those light rays. Yeah, something like that is pretty good. And then we can just play with it and see what feels good to us. I might increase the whites, bring the black out of the sky just a little bit so we get, the light rays showing under here. That's looking pretty good. I might, oops, shadows down. I bring the whites a little bit up a little bit more. And then I might even pull the color temperature of that sky up a little bit. Yeah, maybe something like that. So that those golden hues of the light rays come through a little bit better. So that's pretty good. I don't know that that would be like perfect, but it's a pretty good start for us. The next thing we can do is we can tell Lightroom to select everything else. It's not great for this situation, but we'll do it here anyway. We just duplicate and invert mask, so it'll take the current mask, duplicate it, and just flip it. So it'll select everything that it didn't select in the sky, as you can see here. And so sometimes it's good to just increase that exposure just a titch. Just a titch. Kind of give it just a little bit of contrast between the sky. That's probably plenty. I don't want to mess with that too much. Um, and then with this masking, there's so much you can do. I mean, you can select any part of this photo that we want. What I'm going to do is select a radial gradient, and just a process that I like to go through when we're dealing with reflections to pull those reflections out a little bit more is we draw that radial gradient across that entire reflection. That might be a little bit big. Pull that down a little bit, something like this. And then our adjustments affect only this reflection. So we might increase the exposure just a little tiny bit. We might bring the highlights down just a little bit. I'm going to bring the whites up and the blacks down a little bit so you can see that that reflection is really starting to take shape a little bit better. It's sometimes good to warm it up even a little bit too. We might just kind of do that. You can kind of see that this is coming together. and it's starting to look really nice. I like to go down to our effects section here and bring up the clarity of reflections. I think that starts to look really, really nice. We can bring the texture up so we can start to see those ripples a little bit more. And that's looking pretty good. We go down here to, we'll go back to our global edits here. And we're doing masking. There's really, I mean, often there's just not a lot we need to do in this section globally. We can just kind of leave that alone. These are your curves. Again, I don't know that I'm going to mess with those too much. Sometimes I'll go in and just pump up just a tiny little bit the whites and then pull just the shadows and black down just a tiny, tiny little bit. That even might be too much. Yeah, I might not even mess with that. And then down here, this extra little button down here, we can just pull that up. You see it's at 0. When we select here, it's 0, 0 on the bottom right. We can just pull that up a little bit, and that's just going to reduce the shadows just a little bit more and just kind of bring out a little bit more of that detail. It's looking pretty good. One of the last things I do, 2 more steps, I guess, or 3. I go down to the color grading section here, and this is where we can adjust our midtones, our highlights, and our shadows. I like to pull our midtones down just a little. You can see what that does. And you see we go up and down, up and down. Just gives us a little more of that detail and contrast to the photograph. And then I like to pull the highlights up, I think. Depends on where we are. Yeah, I'll bring the highlights up just a little bit. I think I'm going to leave the shadows alone since we were already messing with those in that curve up above. And then finally, down here in the effects section, I'll show you what, clarity. We can really pump that up or really bring it down. So you can kind of see how it just changes the total feel of that photograph. Typically, I like to bring clarity down. So if this is 0, I like to bring it down, I don't know, 10, 20. Really softens it up and gives us a nice look. Dehaze is kind of similar. What it'll do is if you have a photograph that just has a lot of haze in the sky, it does just what it says it will and starts to pull that out and remove it. In this case, it's kind of a hazy day anyway, so I don't know that I'd want to like remove the haze. Here's what if we do that, it starts to look ultra saturated. Sometimes this is really easy to go overboard with because it's like, oh, it looks better and better and better the more dehaze I apply. Does it though? I don't know. It starts to my eye, it starts to look a little fake and over processed. Sometimes I even just like to bring the dehaze down into the negative just a little bit and then add a little bit of vignetting. And that, I think, is looking pretty darn good. I don't know if it's an exact copy of what I already did. It might be just a little bit different. I'm not sure it's close. Oh, no, that one looks like it has some dehaze in it. So I might pull that out. I think I like the second one we did better. So, yeah, I like that a lot. That photograph looks terrific to me. This is one that I would post. So that was a quick little 10-minute edit of this photograph. I'd probably spend more time and just fine tune things a little bit, but it's just a general overview of what that process looks like. Another curious thing is that I'm not totally colorblind, but I do have trouble seeing certain reds and greens and pinks and different hues of those sort of things. And so that's where these color charts really come in handy. You can see our histogram up here. And so this helps tell us which colors are within range of where they should be. So I'll rely on these sometimes and just make sure that the chart looks good, that we don't have one single color blowing out somewhere, and then I can bring that down or up or whatever the case might be. So histogram is really handy. We can adjust colors individually if we need to. In this case, I don't think we need to. I think this photograph looks really nice. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's if you like this, if you want to see the process on processing photos a little bit more. We can spend more time doing that in other videos, but in this case, I thought it would be fun to go through the process with you.